Hellcat. Running like a Hellcat. Like a Hellcat. Running like a hell. Like a Hellcat.
No, there ain't no stopping us. Fly without boarding pass. Couldn't catch me, I be moving fast. Call me a shooting star. Let 'em know you are. Flying up in a bar. Wish on a star. Time to show 'em who's in charge. Call me a shooting star.
Didn't even get to grass.
I said I'm moving too far. Get to grass. Looking at a shooting star. Got more than a couple of people going mad. I swear they're rooting hard. Tell them I be big in the game like she went and got them breast implants. I said I'm moving too fast, didn't even get to glance. I'm ready to eat up track like I'm seated in a restaurant. If you had swag like mine, you know it's best to flaunt. We aren't hating because you aren't shining like it's neon. Rock like kings of Leon. Shooting stars across the galaxy. shooting. Yeah, shooting. Yeah, shooting. Yeah, shooting shots.
Didn't even get to bronze.
I said I'm moving too far. Get to bronze.
I'm Mario5. I'm a game designer. I'm also a creative director. I've been making games on Roblox for over 10 years, and I've worked on over 20 games on Roblox. Some you may have even played right now. As a game designer, I work a lot in creating satisfying gameplay and memorable moments. Chances are, if you've been playing some of the really top games on the platform recently, you've probably seen some of the moments that I've engineered. But today, we're going to focus on you guys. We're going to focus on how you guys can achieve success, and I'm going to give you guys a bit of an overview of what the talk's about today. We're going to explore the core loop. We're going to look at why you need a core loop first and foremost, why is it important, and then we're going to look at how you can kind of improve it, what you can do to ensure it's airtight. Next, we're going to look at players. We're going to understand why they need to be listened to and the different ways you can do that. And then finally, we're going to take a glance at retention, one of the most important analytics that a developer has at their disposal, and some generic ways that you can set your game up to best take advantage of it. Now, starting off, I know what a core loop is. Some of you might know what a core loop is, but for the people that don't, we need to understand what a core loop is. The core loop is effectively the gameplay cycle that your players repeat over and over and over again. It is effectively what makes your game fun. It is the essence of your game almost boiled down and reduced to its very core. If your game was like a toy, the core loop would be how a kid plays with it. And if that loop makes or breaks, players may not stay in game at all. So that's why you really got to focus on what makes a good core loop. But what makes a good core loop? Well, I've come up with 3 different things. There are plenty of different factors in what makes a good core loop, but these are especially relevant today on Roblox. The first one is you need a simple core loop. Some of the best core loops are the ones you don't even need to teach. There are so many games out there on Roblox that have this grand idea that's super cool, and then the moment you get into it, the moment a new player gets into it, they're like, oh, how do I do this? How do I do that? How do I do this? You don't want that. You want players to just jump straight in and just understand it. You want to establish a loop so simple that it can be done quickly and that it can be understood quickly, because that is the route to then making it engaging. On top of making a simple core loop, you also want to make sure that your core loop has enough rewards and enough enticement for the player to keep going. You don't want them to just go around the loop once, you want them to go around it multiple times. So really focus, after you've got like a kind of simple loop, on making your game fun. That's like the key part of any game, it's to be fun. And okay, you've got a simple fun loop, what can you do next? Now, in order to expand for growth, you have to make it expandable. But when some developers go in and make a expandable core loop, or they try to add stuff to their core loop, sometimes they break it, sometimes they overcomplicate it. And the way that I like to design core loops, which I think would be a great way for you guys to do it, is to think of it like an iceberg. When your players are going through the game, you want them to consume almost as little as they need to understand the game, and enough that they're engaged. But then, as players are playing on and they're spending more time in your game, you want them to be able to kind of peel off layers of that iceberg. You want them to go further and further down the iceberg. And with each layer, they're taking in a certain amount of information and a certain amount of engagement and kind of content, so they're not overwhelmed, but you're retaining players in the same way, because you've got something that's simple to understand, you've got something engaging, and as they're going further and further, you're keeping those two factors the same as they go further and further and stay with your game more. So, in short, a good core loop: simple, engaging, and expandable. But why is the core loop important? Why should you make a good core loop in the first place? Well, a good core loop is a contributor as to why people play. If your core loop isn't fun, growth as a whole aspect will be impossible. It will be near impossible. Because if you spend so much time trying to make this super polished, overcomplicated loop, you may end up forgetting what players were interesting or interested in your game in the first place. And like a toy, if your core loop just breaks, players will just drop the toy. They'll drop the game and they will move on. And there is a huge selection of games on Roblox they will move on to. A great core loop really does set your game up for success in the long term. Now, we're going to lead into our first challenge kind of section here, guys, which is going to be a little bit of a question. I'm assuming the QR code will just appear at some point. Yeah, there we go. So scan this QR code and feel free to have a go at the question. I'll give you guys a bit of a minute here. Oh, it's got nice music. All right, guys. I'm going to give you, just if you're answering a question, I'll give you 10 more seconds. And 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right. So I'm sure some of you have kind of gone through the questions there. To be truthful, I know the question. I can't remember the answer off the top of my head, but the best way to make your game core loop stronger is to focus on, the simple bits, the expandable bits, and something that's engaging. Now, the next section we're going to focus on are your players. This is like a huge part of your game. Growing a game really means you do need to understand your players, and there are a million different ways you can do that. You might even, make a game thinking, I'm going to have these kind of players play the game. And then actually, a month down the line, you might have a whole different variety of players playing it. And really, growth is not just about like understanding your players, but aligning the fun factor with what those players are expecting. So then your players are growing alongside your game. But what are some easy ways to learn from players? Well, first and foremost, the most powerful tool, I use this quite a lot, analytics and funnels and custom events. They're a great tool that you can use to understand both player pathing, player behavior, and a whole host of other things about what they're doing. For example, you can look at their playtime. You can understand how long they're in game for. You can look at session time to understand how long for each game session that they're in the game. And with funnels and kind of custom events, you can understand even minute things or more specific things like a player's going through a store, for example, and you want to know if they are like clicking through and seeing a certain product, or maybe you want to know if they're going through a tutorial correctly, and you want to know at what stage players are leaving, for example. A lot of useful ways you could apply analytics, and it's a great tool, and you should definitely use it if you have a growth mindset and you want to grow your game effectively. Another easy way to learn from players is literally just straight up community feedback. This can be done via a Discord channel. I'm going to talk about that in a bit, but literally just get players to play your game early and give you feedback. Even if you are about to release an update, even if it's not even out yet, the best way to grow and improve your product is to just get a variety of players in, because we've all had it where we've released a game and it's not fit what people's expectations are, but we spent 5-6 months working on the project, and at that point we're kind of over and we don't want to put any more time in it. Instead, try and focus on making something that's just good enough and get players to give feedback and tweak your game based on their feedback. And there are plenty of ways of getting those players. You can use public community servers for Roblox game development. You can use the Discord that they've even provided for game jams and stuff like that. And generally speaking, just try and get people in early. Don't get so hooked on the kind of perfection aspect of the game and game development. Really try and just get feedback on it as soon as possible. Finally, and this is a really strange one, but bear with me here, go in game. Like, the best way to find out what players are doing is just to watch them play. funnily enough, you know, one thing that I guess a lot of people sometimes forget is, you know, they're in that kind of development environment, they're testing the game, they're playing as them, but as they play and as they test more and they develop more, they actually grow, you as a developer actually growing competence at your game. And that means you're not getting a full understanding of what every player will encounter while playing your game. So a couple ways that we go in game is we literally just hop in game. We have an admin panel. We set our transparency to 1 or hide ourselves, turn us invisible. And we just watch people climb or do whatever or interact with things. We see when players are leaving. We see how many players are actually getting past a certain challenge. And we use that information to better educate our future decisions. Now, these are a couple ways to learn. There are plenty of different ways to learn from players. But why is understanding your players crucial to growth? Well, players are your target audience. They are who play your game. And players' tastes actually do change over time. For the last couple months, we have seen so many games explode out of nowhere on Roblox, and different trends explode on Roblox, different games taking place. Understanding what players want in a volatile, ever-changing, like, kind of environment is crucial if you want to make the best optimal decisions. When to release certain updates, what to add on a certain update, even if you should add a certain thing on an update. And at the end of the day, if you don't understand your players, you just won't be able to update effectively, and that will nerf your ability to grow as a whole. Now, we're going to go into another challenge time. We're going to get the QR code up. I'm going to give you another minute, and you guys are going to go and answer that, and I'll let you. All right, guys, I'm going to give you 5 more seconds. Whoa, 3, 2, 1. Wait, okay. Yeah, I didn't note down my answers on this, but the best way to kind of find out what your players like is generally to literally use analytics, use community feedback, and most of all, watch what they're actually doing in game. Those are the 3 kind of key aspects, I guess. Now, we've looked at core loops, we've looked at players. Now we're going to look at retention. Now, in an ideal world, your game has a strong core loop, or a pretty good core loop. You have a player base that's ready to grow, but now you need to understand how to keep those players coming back. And the way that we do that at kind of a large scale is through retention. Now, retention is really important. It's a hack that every game developer should know. Retention is effectively the measurement of how frequent or how many players as a percentage come back for your updates, and how many come back, you know, in a certain time frame. You've got many different kinds of retention metrics. You've got day 1, which is how many players are coming back after the first day of them playing. Day 7, which is how many people are coming back after a week. And day 30 is how many people are coming back in a 30-day period. Retention tells you if players are coming back for certain reasons, and you can decipher why they're coming back, or even if they are coming back. Now, some common ways we use it, because in the games that I work on, we weekly update. We use day 7 quite a lot to understand if players are coming back every update day and how many are coming back each update. That helps us measure how weak our update is, or how strong it is, or what we could be doing to do better. It's a very big indicator of how we can improve our current trajectory. It is also a very significant contributor to how your game is recommended. Now, I'm not sure of the specific aspects to this effect, but it definitely contributes heavily to recommended for you. There is a dev forum article out on the forums right now that you'll be able to find, and it should show you the categories, and retention is a very significant contributor to that. But okay, we know retention's important. We have a strong core loop, and we want to retain our player base now. How can you retain players? Now, these are a couple generic ways because every game is different. But a first really simple one, really simple retention mechanic, is progression. Players really just want to grow. They want to see themselves achieving and doing better and becoming better at the game. So enable players to grow in your game over time. There are a couple different examples of progression mechanics. You can have a level kind of system where they gain experience for doing certain tasks. You could have different chapters that unlock after completing another chapter. The kind of world is your oyster with this. There are many, many, many different ways to implement progression, and it's obviously all dependent on your game. So have a think, how can you take your game, give players a reason to continue playing, but also how can you reward them for continue playing? How can you keep drawing them back through through their own story effectively? There are many ways. The next way that I would say is important to retain players is live ops. Now, live ops has a load of different forms. Some live ops are your weekly updates. Some live ops are things that appear in the middle of the week. Live ops are effectively the kind of means to introduce new content to your players without having to really do much. It just happens. Live ops some examples of live ops in games could include double XP weekends, weather events, restocking a shop, for example. Live ops are a super powerful and crucial tool that most top games on the platform use to this day. And what they do is they create substantial reasons for players to return, and they reactivate people back onto the game. There are other ways you can pair live ops with other things, but generally speaking, live ops create reasons for people to come back after a long time, and reasons to join in the middle of the week as opposed to just in the update. It's a really powerful tool. It's really useful, and you should 100% consider using it if you're at the stage that you've got a good core loop and you're looking to retain players. Finally, which is kind of an underrated, I would say, kind of way to retain players, but actually is super crucial to Roblox, is co-play features. Social and co-play features. Enable playing together. People love to play together. Like, you don't, almost like the number of players that some of the projects I've worked on that have drawn in just from having friends on is insane. People just like to play with their friends. And at the end of the day, the only way you can bring in more people like that is just to facilitate playing together, have a ability to lobby up together, to group up, to share resources, to show off each other's like different things or different farms or things like that. There are many different ways you can implement social and co-play features, but overall it's a great way to retain players because they are going to see their friends on at the time and be like, oh, this person's on, I'm going to go and join them. So again, another great way of retaining them, just like live ops, just like progression. Now, retaining players as a whole, these are all great, right? But actually, something else is really fundamentally needed, and that is community. You need to establish community. Retaining players is great, but if you don't have a place or a kind of middle ground for everyone to meet and to discuss your game, you can say goodbye to retention because players just won't link with your game. They won't understand what's going on. So you can support a growing game at scale by having a community. Some ways is Roblox groups and the kind of online website event pages, which allow you to RSVP for different kind of events. They're used quite frequently on the top games right now. Discord and Guilded communities are quite good for announcing new updates, especially for Guilded. One of the features that I like about Guilded is when you post an announcement with an image, it also can post on a Roblox group. And again, that just kind of draws people in a bit more. It's a bit more visual, a bit more inviting than just a shout. As well as this, look at other social media too. Look at your Instagram, look at TikToks, things like that. Just build a community vibe and celebrate co-play, and just try and create a place where you can foster everyone playing together. So, in conclusion, we've covered a couple different topics today. We've covered our core loops and why they're important, why you need a simple, engaging, and expandable core loop. We've covered players, particularly how we can understand players through analytics, through community feedback, and through playtesting. And then we've covered retention, why it's important, and some of the different ways that you could retain players in your game. I hope you guys have enjoyed this talk. It's been really fun to give it. I'm now going to open up and answer some questions.
Thank you so much, Mario Fly 5. That was an amazing workshop, and you did such a great job. So yeah, scan that QR code. We'll give you guys a little bit of time to submit your questions here. So we'll give a couple seconds before we start off, but I hope you are ready.
Cool.
Yeah, and I guess to start off, what is your biggest challenge as a Roblox dev?
I think the biggest challenge for me, I think there's multiple, right? I think there's two. I would say there's two big challenges. I think the first one is I think work ethic's quite a big factor. I think it's really hard sometimes to always stay focused on the things that you want to work on. Especially if you're on your own, especially if you're working on your own projects, it's very hard. And sometimes, you might have that burst of like, oh, this is something I really want to work on, but then you've got to balance that with all of the like really mundane, boring stuff that you've got to do. So I'd say that's a pretty big challenge. I'd say the other one is actually I'd say time. I'd say that when you're updating weekly, you have to effectively condense your week into 5 days. All your stuff, like everything, like adding new things, you have to really be very particular and very brutal if you want to cut stuff off. And sometimes that means cutting off things that actually you really like or are really cool and really annoy you, and you can't add them because the player's like, oh, why aren't you adding this? And at the end of the day, you just have to move forward, and you have to keep going forward, regardless of what's happening at the end of the day. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'm sure a lot of people in the audience are brand new at Roblox Studio. So kind of what resources did you use as a beginner, and kind of what was your process like when you were first starting out?
So one way that I guess this is maybe echoes some of the stuff that other people have given, but I also give I guess a different idea. I started off playing Roblox when I was very, very, very little. I started when I was 7, pretty much. So a really, really long time ago now. But I got into making games and stuff just by being in a community, being surrounded by people that were also creative and people that were also making things. And you'd be surprised. You can 100% go through the toolbox, look at different models that are out there, kind of break down and understand how things are coded. But one of the biggest powers, especially now, and I've come to really understand this, in more recent years, is having people that you can talk to who are like-minded and understand what, kind of things are going on, and engaging with them and asking questions and learning from each other and just trying to grow. I think the dev forum's a great way to understand that for one means. I'd say Discords, particularly some of the more public developer Discords, are great for that. I'd also say if you were wanting to go and work on a particular project, and maybe it's a smaller project or a roleplay group or something like that, 100% see and shoot your shot. Just see, I want to go and make this stuff, can I have a go at it or whatever. At the end of the day, finding and learning, most of all, is something that you have to be encouraged and also be motivated to do. So I would say rather than giving you like specific feedback on, oh, you should go and like look at this massive list of resources. Instead, I think you should get into the mind space of, or a place where actually learning is just normal and it's something that you enjoy. And yeah, community is the best way to do that.
Yeah, definitely a big trial and error process, but totally worth it for sure. And I know your presentation covered a lot on core loops. So, kind of, what are the main challenges when creating a core loop, and what game do you think does a core loop very well?
Oh, that's a tricky one. So I would say the main challenges with making a core loop is making it simple. It is so easy to, like, I know it's easier said than done to make a simple core loop. And actually, like, people like to think big and think, oh, I can make this really cool game and this will work and whatever. But actually, the simplest ideas are some of the hardest to kind of come up with. So I would say you definitely struggle a lot on making it simple. For me, I don't really struggle necessarily too much at making it engaging because that's predominantly my job. That's kind of what I'm used to. And I guess as well, like making it expandable as well is a bit of a challenge because you don't even know. Sometimes you could release something in a future update and not realize actually that is detrimenting the game, and you may need to go back and make changes. So it's, with having an expandable loop, it's also something that you have to be aware of as you're going forward, and you have to have the foresight necessary to understand, oh, is this decision or update or thing that I'm adding going to cause issues down the line? And it's really hard to have that foresight. It's really difficult. I guess in response to like what games are doing it well right now, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I went on My Singing Brain Rot like the other day and I got really like into it, and I just thought it was like super simple to understand. I love that there's like a conveyor belt there. You can just go and pick up the egg and just place it down and whatever. I think games that effectively are just drop in, go and see what's going on, and then you just place, and it's as simple as that. They're doing great right now. They have really strong, simple core loops out, almost funnily addictive and a little bit fun. So yeah.
Yeah, no shame at all admitting that. Totally.
No.
I'm sure most of us here have tried those games and we have really fallen into it as well.
Yeah.
And I guess another question is, how hard would you say it is to technically make a game by yourself? I'm sure some people are going to do the game jam, and even though they might want to find teams, there's some people who really want to try it by themselves. So I don't know if you've ever had that experience of creating an entire game by yourself, but if so, how difficult would you say it is?
So I have made games by myself a very long time ago, but I think more recently I've like for some of the past projects that I've worked on, I've pretty much like soloed entire like kind of platform events. So things like the hunt or the classic or things like that, with some help for like some assets and things that I can't do myself. I'm not the best 3D modeler, but there are, I would say that again, like the question was what was it again about what's the biggest challenge of making a game on your own, was that? Or...
Yeah, just overall, like how is it, like how hard is it, like how doable is it, just kind of like,
oh yeah,
can these people do it?
I would say, okay, to be realistic, to make a game on your own, you do have to have a lot of like, I guess like a somewhat fundamental understanding of games. But I mean, there are games out there that have a great, phenomenal game design and have the like simplest assets possible. Stuff that actually probably for like a builder that's have like multiple years of experience would say, oh, I'd say that's lazy or something like that. But actually, in those moments, you realize that doesn't matter. At the end of the day, it's what's fun. So I would say what's most important and what you need to have to, I guess, making a game on your own simple and easier. Understand why people are playing games on Roblox. Understand the platform's DNA, the currents, as you will, like the different waves, how games are kind of riding them in a way, and use that and just play a lot of games and apply what you learn from other games to what you're working on. I would say that's the best way to grow you don't need any like fundamental, like you don't need to be necessarily the best at programming. You don't need to be the best at building. All you have to do is understand why a game is fun, be very critical about if a game is fun. Don't get tunnel vision and whatever and think, oh, this game's fun, and then people don't like it. Be critical about it, and actually you will have a much easier time making a game on your own. And Roblox, of course, like Roblox Studio, I remember the first time I went on Roblox Studio as a kid. I was on my grandpa's like old Windows computer, and I just boot up Windows Studio, and I put a bunch of like or Roblox Studio, and I put a bunch of like the really classic mansion buildings on like a base plate, and like it's even stuff like that. It's the tooling itself is so easy to get into. So honestly, just throw yourself at it, and if you need any question answered, go and get it answered. That's the best way to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that mentality for sure. Yeah, and I know you also mentioned in your presentation it's really important to keep motivated and to continue updating your game. So how do you yourself stay productive and motivated? Do you have like self processes, or you just like have a way about going things?
So ironically, like I think like for the longest time, maybe not for the last couple of years, but the longest time I was effectively winging it. But then I kind of like I took a degree, I did a degree, and I understood like, oh, actually I was making this decision because of this, and this is why it makes sense. There is actually a methodical, I guess, pathway as to how you can create things. And I mean, the way that I work on stuff, I generally like to take breaks occasionally. I take breaks like after I've done like a big like kind of shift of working for a really long time, or like even like if I'm like kind of I feel my mind drifting on a project, I just don't bother working on it anymore, and I just take a break, because there is no point in wasting your time. Time is your like most valuable commodity, and if you can be learning from another game in the time that you're questioning how to put a fridge together or something like that in a game, you're probably better playing the game than learning more about it and doing stuff that way, I would say. Yeah.
Yeah. And I know like once you create a game, kind of a lot of people probably struggle with finding that audience itself. So how do you get players interested in your experience via advertising or just other ways of getting people to at least try your game?
So I would say that there's a couple different routes. Experience of working on games. Some of the biggest games that I've worked on did not require any advertisement, anything at all. It naturally lifted, and the reason why it naturally lifted is because A, the core loop was really strong, and B, it analytically and retention wise fit what the recommended algorithm at the time was looking for. Roblox is quite like, although it's like kind of like also as well, you need to make sure it's engaging and fun. You also need to make sure that analytically you are positive, and Roblox's analytics like system has benchmarks that you can look at and listen to and understand whether your game is doing well or not. So I would say if you like have a really good core loop already, and you're already retaining like players, and you're already doing that in a way, growth's going to come naturally to you. I would say if you're still developing a game and you don't have necessarily the strongest core loop or retention loop yet, I would say like kind of like sponsors and advertisements are a great way of bringing players in, like small amount of players that can test out your game. The main reason I guess you'd want to bring in players in the first place in any kind of manner of speaking, whether that's by sharing Discord or whatever, would either be to get feedback, or you want to almost jumpstart the analytics a little bit, which you can do in multiple different ways. You don't have to pay money for that. You can bring in players naturally through like having your friends play, or posting it on a server and getting people to check it out or whatever. There's loads of ways to do it, so don't feel pressured to just having to spend a bunch of money on advertising your game, because you don't need to. You really don't need to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we have a question right here. It says, as a solo developer, how do you suggest managing scope while still keeping the game creative and unique?
Ooh, that's a good question. Scope is when I started, scope was something that I really struggled with, but I would say scope is like quite a. It's better to first and foremost, you got to realize that games do not need to be completed all at once, especially Roblox games. Roblox games are what I would like to refer to as live services. They are things that you will continue to update with time, so you do not need it to be perfect straight away. You can release, kind of an entry level, game that hasn't really got a lot of content in, but over time you can expand that and add more to that, and that will be your means of managing scope, especially on Roblox, because there are a lot of games on Roblox that I know of that spend currently years into development, have spent ages making stuff, and you're wondering when they're going to release, and they haven't released yet. This is a common problem. Ironically, there are also cases where people spend ages on a project and then they ditch it. But I would say, for the sake of your sanity as a developer, and also to get your game out in the first place, keep your scope narrow and simple. When you have simpler game ideas, you also tend to have a much more narrow scope. I'm not saying don't consider what you're going to add in the future, but be very strict about what you're adding, whether you actually need it on launch or whether you can push it and give it a bit of time and add it later. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And for the players to be consistent with your game, when is the best time to announce an in-game update?
I would say, well, if you already know you're updating, do it as soon as possible. Do it you could even say, one of the trends that on one of the projects I work on right now is when we update the game, we release an event for it immediately as we update the game. So there is an event for the next week available and people can sign up to it. We try and create as much awareness as possible that next week there is going to be something happening. Even if we don't know what's happening, because some games we literally plan it the week of, but even if we don't know what's going to happen, we just say, look, we're going to update. If you want to show up, you show up. You might get more information later, but also, a little bit of the not knowing what's going on, sometimes that goes in your favor because it hypes the player up a little bit. It gets them I don't know what's going to happen next week, and then they find out it's oh, this is really cool, and it's cool. They're invested.
No, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
And next question is, what would you recommend me to learn first for development, animations, or modeling?
So, funnily enough, I'm actually going to completely give a curveball answer to that, because I actually started off making games. The earliest game design thing or skill that I actually learned was, as a kid, I would take pieces of paper and I would draw the character selection menus for an idea or a game that I had as a kid. And that literally that was the earliest. I didn't realize this at the time, but that was the earliest example of prototyping and coming up with games. When I started working on Roblox and I guess learning skills, the first thing I learned was graphic design. I learned how to make thumbnails, and then I learned building, and then I learned programming, and then I learned visual effects, and then that's all kind of amalgams together now and gone wherever. So my answer to that is, you don't need to have a particular defined point to start off. You can start wherever you want. I would highly recommend starting which you find interesting, something that's engaging to you, something that's fun, because just like how you're making this cool loop or whatever fun for your players, you have to also engineer the way you're learning and approaching games and making games as something that's entertaining to you, or else you're going to get bored. You're going to move on. The number one project killer is people don't want to continue on a project because they're pulling their hair out about it. You don't want to reach that stage. Trust me. Yeah.
And unfortunately, due to time, we only have time for one more question. So the very last question is, as someone who's developed for years and contributed to some of the biggest Roblox games, what moment in your journey made you realize you were truly making an impact, and how did that change the way you create?
Ooh, how did it change the way I created? That's a loaded question. I don't know.
It's a loaded question, yeah.
I think I would say, like, recently, I would say one of the projects I worked on did in fact break a couple records and broke the platform at the same time. So I think that's a very big like twist. Like, oh no, I definitely do need to change how I'm doing stuff, because yeah, there's a couple blog posts about it and everything. But yeah, I would say in general, like, I don't think I have a particular point really, because I don't view me making a game like at one point as the end of my task. I don't view like making the top game on Roblox as like what I want to do. I derive my fun and enjoyment from making games, from the journey of making stuff and just continuing to do it, and seeing the not only the impact that I have from my games, but also from talks like this, where I get to speak to people and I get to like share my knowledge and hopefully encourage a new generation of developers to go and make stuff. That, I guess, like, there's a load of ways that I've understood that actually, oh, like, I am having an impact. But I think the underrated thing, which people don't always consider, because some people have really small games or big games or whatever, you always have an impact. It doesn't matter what you're doing. It doesn't matter how big or small your game is. You can have a tiny game and you could be having like the most tremendous impact. I mean, during the hunt, like, a lot of the team I was working with at the time, like they were all away. They were all gone, and I was like the only person there, and I was at university, and I had to go and like do a whole bunch of stuff, and we did it in the end. And even on the smaller games, it had like a kind of soft impact. So it doesn't matter. Honestly, impact is something that's so like, it depends what you're looking at. But in my case, I would say I try to always have an impact, because I think that that's what's meaningful at the end of the day. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that answer. Great
Yeah.
way to end today. Thank you so much, Mario55. We are so honored that you came here today and spoke with us. And if you guys are looking for more workshops, we have another one in an hour at 11 a.m. PST. So don't miss it. But again, thank you so much. And everyone, take a break, chill out, and I'll see you guys later.
Bye bye.
Bye.